Welcome back, everybody. I'm so psyched I get a chance to speak to Kapil Talwalkar. He's an actor. You probably know him as Tobin on my one of my favorite actually comedies of all time that just got renewed for a second season. Congratulations to Zoey's Extraordinary Adventure. Welcome, Cap.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you for having me, man.
Oh man, the whole family was jumping up and down. And by the way, I take full pride in this. I am the one who discovered the show for my family and for all of my friends. I watched the first episode and I immediately made everybody sit down and watch the rest of the show with me.
That is so cute, man. I'm that's very grateful for your support, dude. I'm especially bringing your whole family into it.
Look, it's the show, and again, we'll spend a bunch of time on Zoe's because I want to know a lot of stuff. Before that, I want to dive into your background, but just in terms of Zoe's, I it's hard to find a show that has that rare combination of heart and humor. It's
Mhm.
difficult. So there's so many moments where, within the first episode, I've cried twice and I laughed out loud at least 3 to 4 times. It's difficult to find that. Plus, I'm an actor. Musicals are my happy place. So to find that combination of everything, it's ridiculous, and I love it. And um, I don't know how many times I've rewatched certain episodes, but yeah, the whole family was jumping up and down when we saw that it got renewed. So yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Uh, okay, so let's get into your backstory because I want to know a lot of things before we, make our way up to Zoe's. You came to United States as a kid. You were about 3.5 to 4 years old. Your parents moved here, and you moved to my hometown. You moved to Chi-Town. So welcome from Chicago, by the way.
That's awesome, man. Thank you. Yeah, I love Chicago. I was just there in January visiting some old friends. I still have some friends from my years in Chi-Town. So I went there for New Year's and had a great time. And it's one of my favorite places in the world.
Yeah, and Noah Weisberg is here. Noah was on the show. Just I think he was my second ever guest. So and that was very cool. And Noah actually grew up, I think, 15 minutes from where I live. So that was pretty wild. When or how old were you when you left to go to the California?
I was I spent from three to like I want to say 6 or 7. And
Okay.
so I was about 7 when I left, and but I left to California, but I came back almost every summer because all my friends were still back in Chicago. I still remember being so sad
Mhm.
um, leaving because I'd made such great friendships. Some of the closest friendships I still have today are there. So yeah.
Yeah, Chicago is awesome. So, Chicago, everybody, if you haven't visited, you have to once things open up, of course.
Mhm.
Speaking of opening up, I hear that you've been spending some time with your parents during COVID.
Yeah. In fact, I'm surprised how cool they are. And because growing up I didn't I fought a lot with my parents and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
being here with them now, and we have to share the space, and they have I'm an adult, so you know
Yeah.
I it's their house. So for me to be in here, I had to realize that I had to be the one that had to make the compromises because I'm very grateful that they have me here. So
You're a wise man. I'm 45. My parents are much older. And at some point, you do learn that you're not going to change them. They are very interesting people, and you are the one that has to make the first step. So you learned that earlier than I did. So good for you.
thanks, man. Thanks.
By the way, speaking of your parents, I was reading that you're watching a lot of Indian movies while you're there with your folks. I grew up, I came to the United States when I was 14 from Ukraine, or technically from the former Soviet Union. It was not
Yeah.
Ukraine at that time. So I grew up with Indian movies because at that
Wow.
point they weren't allowing any American movies over. And I remember as a kid I was watching Disco Dancer. So for me, I was always fascinated with Indian culture because that's what I kind of grew up with.
To watch, yeah, because they allowed Bollywood movies to be watched there. but not Hollywood. And that's so interesting, man. I'm sure you remember Amitabh Bachchan and some of the old Indian heroes of Jaya Bhaduri. I don't know if you remember any of the, but yeah, there's that's so cool, dude.
Yeah. So for me, again, it's kind of it's life is a series of cycles, and you certainly had those with your music. And look at the first show that you're really doing at NBC. It's all about music. So things are coming back in cycles for us. And for me, I kind of grew up with a lot of the Indian movies. And then as I started working in IT, I'm an IT and HR guy in addition to acting. That part pays the bills, at least still. I started having experiences where a lot of the Indian immigration came to the United States. So for the last 15 or so years, now a lot of my friends are Indian. My son, all of his friends are Indian because there's such a huge Indian community here. So
Oh,
everything is cycles.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's so good to hear, dude.
Yeah, it's I find a lot of similarities between the kind of the Russian and Indian cultures, which
Culture.
actually I have a question about your parents
Yeah.
in a minute. But so you were growing up, you wanted to be in music, you play instruments, you wanted to be a rock star, and then you started doing some plays. When did the acting bug kind of bite you?
I did a play called Lysistrata.
Hmm.
I did a play called Lysistrata, and it's a comedy, and it was a reimagined version. It wasn't like, obviously the Greek version of it, but it was like a modern adaptation of it. And my character was really funny, and I just having done that experience and having taken the audience's reaction and feedback and stuff like that. I just love to make people laugh. I love making people happy and laugh and smiling and stuff. And I saw that as a way that I I liked it, and I realized that I could be good at it. And so that was sort of the first real place where the acting bug hit. I had just actually just taken a drama class in general at school, and then I auditioned for the play.
Very cool. And now, when you went to USC, was that for theater, or did you have a double major? What was the background there?
So some of the Indian people that could be watching would know that that oftentimes there's a lot of pressure from parents to be doing two different things in order for you to be doing an arts degree, or for whatever reason um, you have to also do something academic at the same time as doing arts. So for me um, to be able to do acting, I had to also be doing something that is academic. So I chose international relations and global business.
Okay.
In fact, I cycled through. Excuse me, you just give me one sec. I gotta plug in my
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
power cord. I did international relations and global business after trying to cycle through a different bunch of different majors like neuroscience and linguistics and statistics, and
Yeah.
finally ended up in international relations, global business because I felt that like I wanted to make some sort of an impact on the world, and that if I wasn't doing acting, maybe I could go into, um, you know, be part of an NGO, go around the world, maybe uh, try to help people somewhere other than America. Um, so I decided to do both, and that allowed me to act in plays at USC, but simultaneously also get that other degree. And that was the way that my parents were like, okay, you can all help pay for this, but you have to do this and this, and so that was the deal that was sort of made.
Yeah, not the same way for me. I'll get into my story in just a second, but I remember talking to Sujith Varghese, who's an amazing actor in Canada, and he was saying that he was the first guy in his university to be a pre-med theater double major. So yeah,
That's wild. That's
yeah,
so hard to do. Like
yeah.
the fact that you're doing all these pre-med classes, but also theater classes, I can't understand how like that's takes a lot of determination.
Yeah, my parents were simpler about it. They brought me here when they were 52 years old, with $300 in their pocket that they had to shell out basically at the border,
Right.
and they said, "No, you're not going to be an actor, right? You may have Dustin Hoffman's nose, but he's a better actor, so you're going to get a career." So they didn't let me go for theater, and they said, do computers, do something, but it has to be a career. So I never had a double major option. That was not on the table for me.
Not on the table, huh? Okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you did that, and then for about 3 or 4 years, if I read correctly, you struggled a bit. You were working part-time jobs. You were doing a few things. How did you kind of convince your parents and yourself that I'm going to continue pursuing this?
I was doing everything from Uber to Lyft to
Yeah.
Postmate, everything. I was doing so many different odd jobs and trying to trying to make rent and trying to pay for classes, acting classes, and trying to pay for all the things, my gas in my car, my auditions and my insurance of things. And so like I was really scraping by, and there came a breaking point where I was like, I broke down several times, but one of them was when like I really didn't know how I would consistently make enough money to try to keep trying in this career. Um, so I had a conversation with my parents, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna help you reset up at a different part of the city, get a fresh start, but that's kind of it. That's where our help is gonna end." And I took that as a wake up call, a bit of like maybe I need to like rethink a couple things. That one, I need to rethink how I'm going to make more money,
Mhm.
and so I decided to take up tutoring. So I tutored kids. I tutored kids like middle schoolers and high schoolers, um, and I loved it so much that I still tutor to this day. Even though I'm because of Zoe's, I may not need the money as much as I did back then. I still
Yeah.
just love doing it. Um, so so I decided to do that, and that made some more money, and that didn't necessarily like cost me in terms of gas and insurance and all that stuff to go around. And so and it was a fulfilling way for me to make money. And then finally, I also realized that I needed to become a better actor, because the reason I wasn't booking things was I tried to pin it on all these other external factors, and they may have been true,
Mm.
right? But what's something I could control is my attitude and my skill, and what I invest in it. So one of my mentors, Anil, who was on my South Asian Speak Talk a few weeks ago, um, he brought up to me. I did a play with him, and he brought up to me. He's like, "Hey man, maybe you should consider going back and training more." And initially, like I was resistant to it because I was like, I don't need. I mean, I trained at USC. I did this and that, and I was a little bit hesitant towards it. And then my defensiveness came down, and I was like, what do you recommend? Like, you know me, what do you recommend? And he suggested Meisner Technique, and I looked up Bill Esper Studio in New York City, and I spent 8 weeks there and met Bill and was part of his last summer class.
Mm.
Um, Bill just recently passed, rest in peace. And so when I took that class, I was so inspired that I came back to LA, and I asked Anil, I was like, hey, where can I continue doing this in Los Angeles? So I found a studio that I really liked, and so yeah, I kept on doing the Meisner technique. So, and as soon as I really invested in it, I saw my bookings and stuff and callbacks and all that stuff go way up. I just was a completely different actor after that.
Yeah. Um, it's so interesting you mentioned Meisner because that was my turning point also.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I thought I was a pretty good actor, and I realized that I was way too much in my head, and I was overthinking things. And instead of focusing on my partner and then allowing that to affect me in whatever way that it would, I was because I'm a writer and because of my IT background, I think all of that tended to focus me into I know where the story is going. I've analyzed all the situations. This is what's supposed to happen now. I am saying this. I'm going to receive it. It became much more mechanical. And when I went to a school called Black Box Acting in Chicago, and they have a combination of Meisner and viewpoints and some other things kind of thrown into the program, it just completely got me out of there. And it got me back to just being and reading and being there with the other person and being affected by the other person and then being surprised by, okay, I was not expecting this. Yes, that's the point. And I remember you talking about Lauren Graham and how amazing she is to work with because she's a person who gives you so much. I immediately thought, is that Meisner that he's
it is
referring?
Meisner.
Yeah,
It was 100% a reference to my training of the thing is she is so free and so out of her head
yeah,
that just working with her when I'm there, it's literally I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because it's just so freeing because all I got to do is I know the circumstances and I know the context and I know I've done the work of like what the scene is about. I just trust that now. And then all I'm doing is my activity, which is oftentimes something at my desk, and Lauren comes in and she gives me the line and I have a dialogue with her or something, but I don't know how I'm going to say it because it's literally coming off of the fact that she's giving me so much behavior and her 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 choice on the line is so different every time. So, so I'm just trying to be sensitive and be open and react truthfully.
it's awesome. It's so much more fun to do it that way. You don't, yeah. We can spend just an hour talking about all of that approach, and we'll do a little bit of it a little bit later on. Um, Almost at Zoe's, although this would have been a perfect transition into it. But I heard you say something that made me just want to ask you this question. I heard that you almost got cast as Aladdin. What I didn't understand was that was you almost getting cast as Aladdin on Broadway or in the film. Which one of those was it?
I went I had I went like through the rounds of both of those.
Ooh,
Um, I remember I got a call, I think maybe one or two callbacks for the Broadway one, and I
okay.
got one callback for the movie one.
Yeah,
And I remember I remember just not going forward, but one of the I remember that at the time when I did the Broadway one, my dancing, which has gotten much better since then, was I don't know why. I mean there could be a million reasons why I didn't get it. And
yeah.
like, you know, um but I've been let's just say I've become a better dancer since then, and back then that was definitely something that I needed to work on.
Yeah. Well, listen, you got Zoe's. As far as I'm concerned, you got the better of both of those options. So,
Thanks.
uh, although I love the movie, I haven't seen Aladdin on Broadway. I've seen Aladdin when they came to Chicago. So technically, it was kind of
And Mina does a great job, man. He's like, good for him.
yeah. But it's Zoe's, man. Getting to Zoe's, what was the audition process like for it?
So I remember it being last minute. It was like a Friday.
Cool.
Um, End of the week, end of pilot season too, and I was getting a little bit stressed that, you know, things weren't going my way, and I had just come off of a pilot the year before. In the last 2 years, I'd booked like 2 pilots. So it felt like I didn't book one this year, and I must suck as an actor, and that's not the case. People go years without booking pilots and then book one, and then don't book one for years and then book another one. It's like that has nothing to do with whether you're good or bad. That just depends on someone's taste and what someone is looking for. But I remember it was in the evening on a Friday. I remember it was a Friday because I was like, all right, time to get ready for the weekend. And then this audition comes in. And I was like, I don't remember, but I may have low-key considered passing on it because there was so much stuff. I remember it was like a bunch of this Tobin scenes almost all of them, I think, in the pilot. I had to do the ludicrous rap verse for All I Do Is Win.
Yep.
I had to do, and then I had to also sing a pop song that was upbeat. And so all of this, I was like, what? And so here's the thing that I realized that like I had a good shot at it, because when you turn on your car, sometimes a song from your iPod immediately starts playing.
Yeah.
For me, that song, because my sister's iCloud accounts are connected to mine, she listens to a lot of like DJ Khaled,
Mm-hmm.
and she had put in All I Do Is Win. That was that first song, and it would always come up. All I do is win, win, win. And so oftentimes when I just would start the car, I would just hear that song, and I would forget to turn it off because I was in a rush, and I would just hear the ludicrous rap verse.
Yeah.
So I actually surprisingly had it memorized. And so that gave me the added benefit of not having a piece of paper going, Ludacris going in on the verse because I've never been defeated and I won't stop now. Put your hands up, get him in the sky. And so I literally was just like, Ludacris going in on the verse because I've never been defeated and I won't stop now. And I could just be myself. And so I think that, and I started with that, I remember, because I know like that's going to be a very strong part of my audition, because I had like mapped it out and everything. And then second, I spent a lot of time on each one of the jokes. Something people might not know is I spend a lot of time on every punchline, on giving 10, 15 different options, ideas I have, and maybe I'll show up on the day with 2 or 3 of my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to go in with a bunch of different ideas so that, like, if the director goes, hey, we're going to try something else, what else you got? I got a bunch of different stuff just ready. But anyway, so I had a bunch of different options for all the jokes, and I tried them all, and they actually gave me the opportunity to try them all.
Nice.
There was jokes that didn't make it into the pilot, and yeah, and so I got a call the next day, and that's it was on a plane to Vancouver.
And then you shot the pilot. And when did you find out if it got picked up? And did from the prior history of the pilots that you did before not getting picked up, was there a thought of, oh, come on, another one? Seriously,
I was, because of the disappointment from
yeah.
from some of the other ones. I realized that like nothing is real until it's real and the ink is dry. So so there was a week that some of the other NBC pilots were getting picked up, and I remember I was on a cast group chat with everyone. We were talking, and we were like, hey, like, you guys getting anxious about this? And then finally, the pickup came, and we were all really excited and happy, and yeah, and then we were like ready to go.
That's awesome. I know, again, I do prep, yes. In my prep, I saw that you say that one of the ways you get into a character is through music. So what would have been kind of that music that you used in order to get into who Tobin is?
It's a great question. I listen to a lot of because I thought that the way he dressed, I
Mhm.
think, at least my interpretation of it, that Tobin would listen to a lot of 90s songs. So I remember that I would play the 90s songs and stuff when I was waiting for my scene to go up, and just to get into character a little bit, get hyped, like positive, sort of like let's go, kind of songs. That I think that's what would get me in the right headspace to to be Tobin. So
That's very cool. One of my dad's friends, who my dad used to act, not professionally, but he used to act when he was growing up.
mhm.
And his friend who he was acting with actually made it into a career. And when I talked to that friend a while ago, he said that the way that he gets into everything is kind of the outside in. You first put on the clothes, and then with the clothes, depending on the clothes and how the clothes feel, you start understanding the character. So that was his path. So
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, man. Tobin has such a unique outfit, the backwards hats. You can tell, like, it's like life imitating art now.
yep,
Um, and so, or art imitating life. I think it's life imitating art. Yeah, it's life
uh,
imitating.
it's both. Yeah.
Um, but but every time because I wear a lot of like sweaters and stuff, and so I would go into my trailer, I'd open up the cabinet, and it would have my outfit for the day, and I was like, "Yo, this is crazy," and I would put it on,
Yeah.
and I would just like own it. I was like, "This is me now," and I'd be listening to '90s music. I'm like rocking, like looking at the clothes, and I'm just like in it, and I think that sort of got me into I started like walking differently. I started like thinking differently. I mean, that's just how, and I've done that for different roles too. And I've
Mhm.
done that for several different roles. I mean, I have a lot of theater experience, and theater, oftentimes you get the, you know, privilege to play these outlandish characters, and I have, and just wearing the outfits of those people and hearing the music and stuff around you, and it's very easy to not easy, but it's very fun to get lost in
Yeah.
the world of what that person would look like, sound like, talk like, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I want to know kind of when I'm reading when I'm reading the whether it's a play or the sides, kind of I start getting impressions of okay, this is what the character kind of walks like and talks like and has tendencies. Is he, a gum chewer? What type of shirt is he going to wear? Like all of those things come into play, and the most fun characters I've played are the characters who are wearing stuff that I would not.
Right.
And
That's
it's
the best.
yeah, yeah, you just get a chance to get out of your own way and to really inhibit somebody else, and then you can go as big as you want or as small as you want. It's fun, and it's a lot easier to play that way for me anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Good. All right, so you're on this incredible, incredible set with amazing people who are well known and well respected, but it's work and it's a lot of focus. At what point did you kind of realize, hey, I'm on an NBC pilot, excuse me, NBC sitcom with all of these people who I know? At what point did that kind of get into play?
Um, I mean, immediately. I mean, as soon as I didn't know exactly who was. I just didn't have the time to like do necessarily all the research
Yeah.
uh, immediately. but because it was like a 24-hour turnaround. But I got there and I was like, whoa,
Yep.
what?
Yep.
Where am I? And so I guess, man, I mean, they've never made me feel like that. They've always made me feel like even though I was intimidated,
Mhm.
they never made me feel that way. Their vibe never made me feel like that. They were so approachable.
Good.
And that's why I could create friendships with everyone because a lot of the stuff of their attitude of being able to like really um, bring me in. And so I was very grateful for that. And Skylar was one of the people that was one of the first people that would be like, hey, by the way, guys, Cap was on in a play called Radiant Vermin that me and his ex-wife at the time had gone to see, and like everyone, like you should go check that out because it's like he was so good in it, and he's up for an award and this and that, and he was hyping me up to everyone, and I was like, hey, wow, dude, I'm so like, thanks for you don't need to do that, but like, wow, like, thank you for being a fan of me. Like
Yep.
that came out of nowhere. So, and I was such a fan of every single one of those people going in, and so, um, it just made me feel really welcome, and it was nice.
Yeah. It's great to be on a set like that. I'm really happy because all of them, I don't know any of them personally. I got to know a bit from our conversations, but all of them seem like genuinely nice people. So it's good to hear that that's the reality of what's going on.
Yeah, they are. They're all amazing.
Yeah. So Skylar doing all of these things, is that why I read that you're on Team Max rather than Team Simon?
Yeah, I'm on Team Max. No, I mean, look, man. I mean, I think I'm on Team Max not because of my friendship with Skylar, actually.
Okay.
I'm on Team Max simply because I think Max is closer to Zoe in a more meaningful way. I think
Mhm.
that Simon and Zoe in the future could have a much deeper connection and a more meaningful connection, actually. Open to that. But I think the way things stand as of season one,
Right.
towards the end of season one, I think, Zoe and Max are great.
Yeah. Again, I'm kind of Team Max, even though I love what they're doing with Simon, and I love that they're adding a lot more to it, and there's a lot of depth and heart there. But I'm Team Max just because I identify with Max a lot more. I'm the nerdy, lovey type of guy, so I'm gonna root for Max anyway.
Right.
Uh, so that's kind of where I fall into that. But we'll see what happens in season 2 and hopefully seasons 3, 4, and so on. Um, so as I'm watching again, as me as a fan, I'm watching and I love the show. Me as an actor is still in there, and as I'm watching the show, I would sometimes pause it, literally to the dismay of all of my family members, and say, I wonder how many takes this took because I'd be peeing my pants about 15 times during it. How often did you guys break? Because I don't know if I'd be able to hold it together.
Dude, you know that shrimp scene?
Yes.
I could not hold my shit together, man. That 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 probably took so many more takes than it should have because all of us were realized how fucking ridiculous that was that I brought a bunch of shrimp to one of an incredibly serious conversation and there was a couple takes that they didn't end up using, and arguably the one they used is probably the funniest, but there was one take that I remember. There was one take that I remember that I was like, hey guys, what just happened? By the way, don't tell Ava I took these. And then Renee goes, hi, I'm Ava. By the
Yep.
way, this is all improv. And so, by the way, I was like, by the way, don't tell Ava I took these. I haven't met her yet. She
Yeah.
goes, "Hi, I'm Ava."
Yep.
And then I go, "I'm gonna put these back." And that one I thought was, but the thing is, like, I just couldn't keep my shit together
Yep.
for like, I don't know, like I think the only usable one was the one they used because I was breaking so hard on that one. And also there was a few ones that, like, I we all broke. There was a lot of there was there was a few jokes that, like, Skylar and I had went back and forth. There was like, "Hey, I got my baby toe amputated," and then Skylar threw in, like, "Is that why they call you Tobin?" And
Oh.
I didn't end up making it in, but some of that stuff. I mean, there was a lot of jokes that didn't end up making it in, but I think the jokes, all of them, there was we were just dying, just like listening to it. I think oftentimes we would get our, like, funny, like, get the funny whateverness out when we were just doing the blocking, because
Yeah.
we would block and, I would be reading it, and and we would laugh, or, someone would say something else and I would laugh, and so and then when we actually did the take of it, like, all that laughter and stuff was gone, but there was obviously some that, like, it was still there, like the shrimp one for sure.
Yep. It's awesome. NBC and shrimp, the good place. They keep on inserting shrimp, and I love it. Please
Everywhere.
continue. By the way, you mentioned Ava. I just got done watching Altered Carbon, so I still have her in my mind as that character, and then I see her completely different now
Yeah,
dancing. Okay, I really need to reconfigure my brain for a second. It was very cool.
yeah, it was. I
Um,
mean, I haven't seen Altered Carbon yet, but I hear she's wonderful.
Yeah, she's amazing. The whole show, I know you're a fan of acting. From the acting perspective, I'm blown away by the work that they're doing on that show. Seasons 1 and 2. Like Chris Connor, I don't know why he's not getting nominated for awards for his portrayal of the character. He's an AI in there.
Oh,
He's
wow.
just ridiculously amazing. Like anytime I watch it, I stop and I'm trying to figure out how I can do this myself. It's just brilliant. So I highly recommend it. By the way, Altered Carbon.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so what's kind of talking about this? What is your acting approach? I know we talked Meisner. What are you using that works for you?
What am I using that works for me? Um, like, specifically, do you just want something in general, or?
No, it's just I talked again. There's so many approaches, and people swear by certain approaches because they work for them. Other people say nothing works, and you just have to throw it all away and and be. So for me, it's interesting to hear what works for you, whatever it is, whether it has an
Um,
approach name or not. What is it that works for you?
yeah, that's a good question. I think preparing as much as possible.
Yeah,
Preparing as much as possible, having different ideas, uh, knowing how I feel about everything,
yeah,
knowing how I understanding the scene 10 times in different angles, different ways, um, knowing how Tobin or I would feel about what everyone is saying and
mhm,
about all the things that are happening, the circumstance, knowing, having a very clear perspective on what is going on in the scene, having, um, yeah, so that, knowing what I'm trying to do throughout the scene, having a clear entrance, a clear exit, which is
yep,
important for comedy,
mhm,
um, and then knowing. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, like, my specialty is comedy, and so knowing where the punchlines are,
yeah,
knowing where we can craft nuances, knowing where you can, find places to improvise, and if they allow you to. Um, and then after you do all of that, let it go, know that you've done it already, and so you know all these things. You don't need to hang on to them. You don't need to study them like it's some paper. You just know them.
Yeah.
And and then when you're there on the day, just put your attention on the other person, do the activity or whatever you're doing to get in. And it's literally, I mean, it's Meisner. It's that's all I do. So
Very cool. Comedy is, especially sitcom, it's so complex. It may seem easy to the people who are viewing it, but it's like a piece of music. It has very specific rhythm. You have to hit the right notes. It builds up to a crescendo. There's a lot of work that goes into it to make it work. So yeah, comedy is very cool. You mentioned kind of life imitating art. You've mentioned me or Tobin. I know that Austin, after a few episodes, he started understanding more about who you are, and he started writing Tobin more to match Cap. What were some of the changes that you noticed when you said, "Oh, you're writing Tobin to be more like me"? What was that?
I don't know if he was consciously doing that.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if he had meant to, but I think that's how I saw it.
Okay.
Uh, because in a conversation with him on a plane, I remember him telling me that like there's a lot of similarities between you and Tobin. Um, but I don't know if he like consciously. I'm sure like knowing my sensibility and knowing who I am as a person, he was writing,
Yeah.
having known my strengths, right? So, but but what was the question?
Well, if you've noticed some changes, like Tobin started out this, and then you saw him kind of moving a little more towards
I
who you
think
are.
I think what's really cool is that like Tobin was a really misunderstood character,
Okay.
and that like I love that Austin brought a lot of heart to Tobin.
Yeah.
That like you know you didn't see Tobin and like I hate that guy, or some people did, and then maybe like throughout the course of the season they might have changed their minds
Right.
because it just goes to show that everyone has a journey to go through in learning
Yeah.
of where they're messing up, you
Mm.
know. And I think Tobin, for him, he's like exposed to a lot of different broy voices,
Yeah.
and I think for him the change goes from the beginning. He wants to be the idea of a bro more than he wants to be a bro. He likes the idea of that more than he actually is that.
Yeah.
So that when we learn that about his sensitivity as the season goes on, we learn that like we can empathize with the character that wanted to be like something and then realize that they are great as who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's Zoe's. They're not making any token characters. They're diving in. They're not taking anything for granted, and they're not shying away from anything. So that's the part that I really appreciated about it. Very cool. Going away from acting for a second, I read somewhere that you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender,
I
which is my favorite cartoon ever.
really I just started to get into it with my sister. We're just like in the first season of it.
Oh,
So
you have a lot of fun to go to, and I think hearing you talk and learning about you in my prep, I see that you're sensitive in a way that you're open to information, and you process things, and you are a deep person. So
thanks, man.
that is a you're welcome, and that's a wonderful show. I think you'll enjoy it on a much deeper level than some of the kids who are watching it. And then once you're done with Aang, you're going to get to Korra, who is a very different avatar, but still dealing with a lot of her own issues. It's a fabulous series. I absolutely love it. When my daughter was growing up, I watched it on my own. Then I watched it with my daughter when I thought it was appropriate for her. Then I rewatched it with my son as as he was growing up. So I've gone through all of these iterations. It's awesome.
Wow. I mean, it's so interesting that like when you rewatch something at a different point of time in your life, when different things are happening around you,
Yep.
something that is a good piece of art can tell you something or show you something different depending on where you're at in your own life.
Yeah. You'll I want to talk to you after you're done with it because there's a lot of depth in that show. As a matter of fact, there are some teachings that they're baking into the kind of the world and the philosophy and theology in a way of Avatar. So some people are taking certain parts where they're talking about you're going to get there later, but when they're talking about chakras and how to open them up and everything else, like if you believe in spirituality, yoga, or anything else, it's all there in Aang, and they're talking about all of it with all of the elements. It's from a spiritual perspective, it's a dream. So I love it.
Well, I will definitely watch the whole thing and
Yeah,
we'll let you know.
very cool. All right, to wrap things up, a few more things I wanted to find out. What is one one thing? Let's keep it to one thing. What is the one thing that most people don't know about you
The one thing people don't know about me.
that you want to share on an international YouTube channel?
Right. I think I would say I come across maybe very chatty and extroverted, but when I'm not, I I really like my alone time a lot. I can be very quiet. I like to read. I like to, process things and take my own time. And um, oftentimes that it doesn't mean I'm like shy. I don't want to say I'm shy but like I just need my like recharge time a lot.
Yeah,
And that may not, when you meet me, you may not necessarily, it may not be so apparent.
yeah. You're an extroverted introvert.
Yes, it's a good way to put it.
I had to come up with that because I'm the same way. You know,
Great.
uh, yeah, when I'm out, people think that I want to be the center of attention and I want to be in every conversation, which is true.
Yeah,
But yeah, if I don't get my alone time when there's just silence, I don't do very well.
same. And so like I need that time to process and like go back and like be recharge, think about things, because otherwise I can't be that other version of myself
Yeah,
if I don't have that opportunity to decompress and like step away from things.
yeah, well, it's balance. We need to have that balance in life. What's next for you? I know the show got picked up, which is awesome. Hopefully, things will start opening up and you can actually start recording it.
Yeah,
In addition to the show?
I've been doing some quarantine work. Um,
Nice.
I filmed a series called Bolly Weird that was just out, and
Cool.
um, it was a fun quarantine project, which was great. The whole team was fantastic.
Mhm.
I also just am working on another quarantine project called Hotspot,
Mhm.
um, uh, which is one episode of another series centered around quarantine, which I'm going to be doing, which I'm going to be filming literally at my own house, which will be fun.
Nice.
Uh, Other than that, hope I'll get back to filming a Netflix show that I booked. It's called Special.
Mhm.
Uh, and if everything goes well and we don't have a second wave and it's safe, then fingers crossed. Hopefully it'll start back up in August or something, August, September.
Very cool. Lastly, and this is the only same question that I ask of all the actors that come into the show, but if you were able to give a one acting advice to a younger actor version of yourself, what would that be?
Focus on the other person's lines, not yours.
Okay. Yeah. It's great. It would have served me well early on.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Because when we look at a script, the first thing we ever do is usually as a young actor, you look at your lines and how to make your lines great.
Yep.
But you can't even begin to think about how you're going to make your lines great unless you really understand the other person's lines.
It's true. Thank you. That's very cool. Thanks, Cap. I really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck on Zoe's. Please say hello to everybody. I love them all dearly. And hopefully it gets renewed for another 15 seasons.
Alan, thank you so much, man. This was such a great conversation and so well researched. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's only a couple of pages that I had to get down to a much smaller text just because I have questions, and 3, 4, or 5 of them I didn't even get a chance to ask because it didn't make sense in the conversation. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, of course.
And thanks for everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. We know that you love acting as much as we do, and that's why we do this. So thanks. Please comment, please subscribe, please share, and tell everybody why you love acting.